Welcome to the first episode of Art History with Caroline Quintanar. Today we'll be looking at three different things. We'll be looking at some different news that's come up over the week, looking at what's coming out of the Medieval magazine next week, and also looking at our very first travel destination. So in the news, you've probably read Northern Hemisphere. We're going through an extreme heat wave up here. Now, it's not extreme for most people. I'm originally from Arizona, so I'm used to hot temperatures, but I'm also used to air conditioning and swimming pools. So having to deal with 30-degree Celsius or 90-degree Fahrenheit temperatures in a building without any air conditioning is not the most comfortable. But that aside, the heat wave and the lack of rain has actually proved to be extremely helpful for archaeology. Now, we wouldn't really think, heat wave archaeology, okay, so they get to dig more, there's not rain. Actually, it's completely scorched all the grass and all the vegetation. And from aerial view, so flying over different locations in the UK, you can see Iron Age and ancient settlements that previously were not visible to the naked eye. So there may have been some information that indicated, okay, there was something in this area, but you can't really just dig up all of the different corners where you have a theory or you have a hunch or you have substantial information. You usually have to go through quite a process to be able to start, excavating. So it's actually been very, very helpful for archaeologists here because now you can really see where these settlements are. You can see there's different circular formations, some are more angular, but they're clearly evidence of something that came before. So at the end of the video, I'm going to include some different links. I'll include links as well in the description where you can see some of the examples of these different locations. There's also a great video that came out from the BBC. It's quite short, less than a minute, that just shows you flying over what these different settlements look like. So next up is what is coming out of the Medieval magazine. So our next issue is scheduled to come out next week, and we'll be looking at medieval travel. Now, this is not only locations that are medieval for you to visit, like we highlighted it in our castle issue earlier this summer, but looking at travel from a medieval perspective. Now, there was a lot of travel, there was a lot of movement in the Middle Ages, and so we'll be looking at it from different perspectives across Europe. We have a really interesting article coming in that'll be looking at these two monks and their interaction with the Mongols in the East. So this is a really interesting perspective, kind of branching out of the mainland Europe, which most people tend to associate with the Middle Ages. So this will be available next week, next Friday. You can also look at our current issue that we released, which is on summer, so we have a lot of different topics, and our past issues just by going to the website, which is www.themedievalmagazine.com. So there you can purchase individual issues if you like, or you can sign up for a yearly or monthly subscription. So the magazine is full of expert articles and expert content looking at medieval history from all different perspectives. So we're not just focusing on history, we look at art history, we look at all different types of regions and locations, and we look at the whole medieval timeline as well. So I highly recommend having a look at it. And then next week I'll talk more in depth about the medieval travel issue and share with you a few more tidbits and hopefully get you excited as well. So as promised, I'm going to be featuring my very first location of medieval travel. I've chosen my favorite building in the whole world, which is Santa María del Naranco, which is located in Oviedo, Spain, in Asturias. So Asturias is like Middle Earth. So if you're not able to fly to New Zealand, you can fly to Spain and go to Asturias. It's picturesque, it's beautiful, it's green, it's lush, and people are absolutely lovely. So my first experience with this building, or introduction to this building, was about 10 years ago when I started to take medieval art and architecture. And from the moment I was hooked. So much so that I actually have a personalized bag for Santa Maria del Naranco. So I had this commissioned. It's a bit wrinkly, but you can see here the building. So I got this through an independent artist. His website is Bonfire Cherry. I'll give you a link at the end where you can commission your own work as well. So I gave him the photo of the building, and I said, I really want to have this on a bag. I'm the only person in the world who has this, so if you'd like to get a copy of it as well, I'm sure he still has it saved somewhere, because I love it. I love it. It's fantastic. So how do we get to Santa Maria del Naranco? So Oviedo is in, like I said, in Asturias, in northern Spain. So if you're coming from Madrid, it's about a 4 to 5 hour train ride. The train ride is absolutely beautiful. So definitely worth the 4 to 5 hours. It takes you straight into the center of Oviedo, and you're in the center of the town when you arrive. So to get to Santa Maria del Naranco, it's up on a hill. It's on Mount Naranco, and it overlooks the city. There are two ways. You can take a bus, which takes about 25 to 30 minutes, or you can take a walk, which is about an hour uphill. Now, if it's not raining, the walk is great, but if it is, I do recommend taking the bus. It doesn't take very long, and it drops you kind of right outside of the building, and then you just take a brief walk up a small road to get there. So let me tell you a little bit of history about the building apart from my obsession with it. So it's from the 9th century. It was originally built as a palace for Ramiro I. So it was finished in 842, but it was later consecrated to be able to do some holy rites there in 848. It's one of the most superb examples of pre-Romanesque Asturian architecture. It's not just my opinion, it's also the opinion of UNESCO and the Spanish Ministry of Culture. So, given that it was originally a royal palace, it has a very different layout in comparison to other religious buildings that we're used to looking at. It's rectangular, it has 2 levels. So underneath you have the crypt, and on top you have kind of the main hall in the Mirador, which looks over into Oviedo. Now, it was originally part of a larger complex, because just about 100 meters away you have San Miguel de Lillo, which is also absolutely adorable, and I'll speak about that in another episode. So for about 300 years it was functioning as a civil building, and then the 12th century it was converted into a church. Now, if you've ever seen any logos or pictures from Asturias, you'll see it'll be 3 arches and then overlooking a landscape. And that's what you see when you're standing there in those arches in the Mirador and looking out over Oviedo. Now, the building itself is very unique as it comprises a lot of different architectural and decorative elements that at the time of construction was a bit out there. This is very innovative in comparison to some of the other buildings. So you're looking at different types of capitals, kind of with a bit of a Byzantine influence, mixed with traditional decoration from the area. So you have some very interesting capitals, you have different animal motifs as well. This is, according to some sources, the first introduction of the Greek cross, which is also the symbol of Asturias. So you'll see it everywhere in Asturias, but it's also located on this building. So if you want to visit, you need to take into consideration a few things. It's not open for very, very long. It's only open for a few hours a day. Now, if you want to go admission free, you can go on Mondays. There's no guide, so it's a bit of a free-for-all there, but also worth visiting. Any other day that they're open, it's €3 per adult. So there's a summer schedule and a winter schedule. Summer schedule is from about 9:30 to 1. They do have an afternoon where it's open as well. And then the winter schedule is from 10 to 12:30. So just double check these different timetables to make sure that when you get there, it is open. And it's quite an experience. I highly recommend it because apart from me loving the building and thinking it's phenomenal, you really get the sense of stepping into the 9th century. That's what's so cool about it, is there's nothing built up around it. So you walk up to it, it's on this beautiful green hill, and it's just standing there in all of its beautiful pre-Romanesque majesty, waiting for you to come in and experience it. And welcoming you really into the past. There's, you know, this open green pasture. You can see Oviedo the same way that Ramiro I probably would have seen it. Now, the skyline is a bit different, obviously, but he would have been standing there saying the same thing. You know, if you stand in between those columns, he would have stood there as well. So you're standing on the same spot that someone was standing there in the 9th century when this was completed. Then, about 100 meters away, as I mentioned, you have San Miguel de Lillo, which is just the most adorable, tiny little church you've ever seen. It is very compact, it's very little, it's just precious. And you can see kind of how everything came together for this particular complex. So while it was functioning as the royal residence, he also had that little church on the side where he could go and he could, you know, connect with God, and he could pray, and you know, he had that special location as well, apart from his own residence. So I will have some links at the end as well where you can get information, tourist information, just a little bit more information about the building as well, and along with the link for the artist who created the bag for me. So thank you for joining me for this first episode, and I look forward to seeing you again next Friday.